Hello and welcome to Deprogrammed with Carrie Smith. Today is Friday, March 4th, and you're watching our live show. Also, I'm running tech today because school is out, so I apologize up front for anything that's going to happen during this show. I'm a little nervous, so bear with me. This is a new channel. If it's your first time here, hit subscribe if you're not already subscribed. We do have a new subscribe star set up. We're not able to accept super chats yet. So if you're in the chat, we'll try and read some of the chats, but we don't have super chats yet. We do have a subscribe star and a Patreon. I'm very excited about our panel today. I'm going to be joined by Sara Higdon and Mike Harlow. And then later in the show, we're going to have on Libby Emmons from the Post Millennial to talk about one of her recent articles. Welcome, guys. Let's see if I can do this. There we go.
Hey.
Hey!
Mikey,
Hey, I'm so proud of you with your new channel.
Oh, thanks. People probably wouldn't think that I would be nervous doing it because I've been doing Unsafe Space for so long with Carter, but there's something in my head about, I have a fear of public speaking. And
I don't know why you do, but you do. So
well, I do. And this is like mind effing with me. It's like, you're public speaking again. Like, why? I feel like I'm operating without my safety net or something. Anyway,
good job.
Well, I'm glad that you're both here. And you guys, Sara and Mikey, you guys already know each other.
Yes, I love her.
We do. Yeah, we've done some videos. We've met each other in person when they were here for Walk Away a couple times. So yeah, we know each other.
Hell yeah, I love Sara.
Before we get started, I just wanted to tell people where they can find you online if they haven't seen any of my interviews with you. Sara, can you just tell people a little about you and where they can find you?
Yeah, so I'm obviously a content creator, and now public speaker.
Do you have a fear of it?
Not so much. I was in the Army for 7.5 years, so I could give briefs and stuff like that to just about anybody. It was getting in front of the camera that scared me. I remember we talked about that a little bit on our video that we did a couple weeks ago as well. But yeah, so you can find me on sarahhigdon.com. I have links to everything on there, but some of the key ones are youtube.com/Sara Higdon, and then it's Sara Higdon _ for Twitter and Instagram.
And Mikey, just in case, you just recently got unbanned.
Yes, on Instagram. I don't know. I think this is the 11th time that I've gotten myself unbanned. I was like stuck in a thing for a while where they were just unbanning me and rebanning me like a couple hours later, but I think I'm finally back on there. I had to add like an _ to the end of my username on Instagram just to get out of the cycle because I was probably on like some sort of list.
You should do a video on how to get yourself unbanned across platforms.
You know what's funny? Yeah, because I have tricks and shit. And like whenever I hear somebody, because I'm kind of like one of the most banned people, I think, I feel like I've earned my title. So like whenever somebody is banned from something, I like reach out to them and try to offer my help and my expertise. They don't want it.
Oh no, because you
single time they're like, yeah, okay, cool, fuck off. I'm like, fine, stay banned. What do I know?
Well, they might think you're one of those bots.
My help.
Because there are those bots on Instagram. Anytime you talk about being banned, those bots that show up in comments.
People who I know.
Oh, okay.
They do not want my help, so fine, they can stay banned. I'll help other people. By the way, sorry, parents. Oh yeah, wait. So that's like Sleepy Harlow _ or I'm not Mike Harlow on Twitter because I have to pretend I'm not me because I've been banned so many times. Also, sorry, parentheses. I am so pissed at my hair because whenever I swear the guy just hates me because he went on this whole diatribe about he's like tan, by the way. He's not black, he's nothing. And he went on this whole diatribe about how I'm a person of color in America. I'm risking my life every time I walk out my front door. So I blocked him on everything so he couldn't find me. But maybe he did first. So every time he used to cut my hair so cute before that. And now every time he does this shit. So excuse me if I just have like a glue stick trying to glue my hair down.
So words
Actually,
to the wise: never block your hairstylist without moving.
Well, it'd be
Or
worse if you
do it
saw
and then move
the
to a new
shit that I
hairstyle.
post.
Therese in the comments, actually. Hi, Therese. She says, I haven't seen Mikey full with his hair in a minute. Hi, guys. Welcome to chat. So one of the things I want to talk about with you, the news cycle moves so fast now that it's hard. It seems like something's old news when it's really not. But the State of the Union just happened, as we know. And there was something that happened right before the State of the Union. I'm going to try and pull this up and put it on the screen. Did you guys see the memo that got leaked from Joe Biden's polling firm?
Yeah, I think I saw you post it.
Somebody tagged me in this, and it was so disturbing because it happened before the State of the Union. So he had this polling firm basically poll a bunch of Democrats. I don't think Republicans. I think it was just Democrats. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then they put out the polling results to him and to all the members of the Democratic Party, and it basically said we have to move away from COVID. Let's see if I can pull it up, and then we can read some of it. And the person that originally shared this, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So the person who originally shared this, if you guys want to check them out on Twitter, she was saying, here's the literal memo to the Dems. It's okay. This is from Julie Hamill_law. Here's the literal memo to the Dems from Biden's polling firm. Declare a win over COVID and move on. I suspect the CDC will get the memo. Will Gavin Newsom and Public Health, LA Public Health? We shall see. The State of the Union's on Tuesday. And what's funny about her tweet is she put this out in the morning, and then by that afternoon, the CDC had issued new guidance based on these polling results. Yeah. And then we saw Gavin Newsom follow suit. We saw New York follow suit, and everyone just started speaking the same garbage. Yes.
Remember, we saw this again. We saw this in December as well. If you remember, they were starting. We knew the poll numbers were down. Nothing like this came out, but they were talking about, was it masks? I think the new guidance had come out like, okay, maybe we should start or it was one they were talking about looking at death rate instead of infection rate, because that would help ease people's minds, right? That COVID was going away. And two, it was they were starting to be like, no, masks don't work, all this stuff. Even the person that was on CNN announced that they didn't. So it seems to follow this trend, because then when there was a big spike of Omicron, so they really couldn't hide this in January, but it's interesting. And it doesn't surprise me at all that they would change it so quickly.
Yeah, well, like someone said in chat, I just saw it go by that the new science is political science, and that seems to be the case. This is just so. I guess I expected. I need to stop expecting people to be people who are in the, I would say, the echo chamber, the mainstream echo chamber. I guess I should stop expecting them to be outraged about stuff like this. But I still I think, what if I were still in that cult? If I saw something like this, it would be the man behind the curtain moment for me, where I'm like, wow, This is truly political. And then watching them all fall in lockstep and repeat this stuff. I just want to read a little bit of it and see if you guys have any comments. So this memo says,
by the way, I'm like all laggy. I'm trying to fix it real quick. Sorry.
Okay. It says, after 2 years that necessitated lockdowns, travel bans, school closures, mask mandates, and nearly 1 million deaths. Okay, so 2 years that necessitated. I like that they put that word in there up top. Necessitated lockdowns. Nearly every American finally has the tools to protect themselves from this virus. It's time for Democrats to take credit for ending the COVID crisis phase of the COVID war. Point to important victories like vaccine distribution and providing economic stability to Americans, and fully enter the rebuilding phase that comes after any war. Okay, so then if you read through this thing, they have all these bullet points, and the Democrats, though, if you just count the word Democrats, how much they mention it, it's really disturbing. So here we go. Number 1, declare the crisis phase of COVID over and push for feeling and acting more normal. Thanks to Democrats, We are nowhere near where we were 2 years or even 1 year ago. Democrats have a tremendous opportunity to claim an incredible, historic success. They vaccinated hundreds of millions of people, prevented the economy from going into free fall, kept small businesses from going under, and got people back to work safely. Because of President Biden and Democrats, we can safely return to life feeling much more normal, and they should claim that proudly.
Yeah, again, doesn't surprise me at all. This is how they do it. Biden said he was going to get rid of COVID in his first year, and he didn't do that, and people hammered him on it. It's so funny because he's trying to say that he also created how many millions of jobs when we still haven't broken even from the beginning of the pandemic. So he hasn't created any more jobs than what we had before this whole thing kicked off. So it's not really creating jobs. Can't take credit for that.
It's really easy to take credit for creating jobs when you Democrats, all the lockdowns, forced so many out of business. I think the most offensive thing to me in this is where he says kept small businesses from going under. What are you talking about? That's the exact opposite of what happened.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm going to read just one more part of this, and then we'll see.
Level of gaslighting, or is it just we never noticed it?
Mikey, something's wrong with your audio, Mikey. You might want to drop out and rejoin. Okay. Okay, I'm going to read one more part while Mikey tries to fix his audio. Okay, recognize that people are worn out and feeling real harm from the years-long restrictions and take their side. That part is underlined. Most Americans have personally moved out of crisis mode. Twice as many voters are now more concerned about COVID's effect on the economy, 49%, than about someone in their family or someone they know becoming infected with the coronavirus, which is only 24%. 2/3 of parents and 80% of teachers say that the pandemic caused learning loss, and voters are overwhelmingly more worried about learning loss than kids getting COVID. 6 in 10 Americans describe themselves as, quote, worn out by the pandemic. The more we talk about the threat of COVID and onerously restrict people's lives because of it, the more we turn them against us and show them we're out of touch with their daily lives. Okay, I'll take that off of there now.
You hear me now?
But yeah, it's just your audio, Mikey, is like really sped up. Is that happening for you too, Sarah?
Yeah, it sounds like a robot, like somebody said in the chat.
Yeah. I think you should
I'll be right back.
Leave StreamYard and come back.
Okay.
Try that.
Sorry.
It's okay. You are very sped up. It's just funny. Yeah, so one of the things I was thinking about, because this had to sink in for me reading about this, Sarah, was that it's sort of, I think it proves what we were saying all along, some of us, which is that this was always in our hands, because they're making policy based on polling, based on what the public thinks. Yeah. And so now that the public says we're tired, we're worn out, they're like, okay, let's get rid of all the overreaching restrictions. So if we had just stood up from the beginning and the polling had said people are not okay with this, they're not okay with you closing small businesses, I think we forget how much that power is in our hands.
Yeah, I think, the people, we were standing up. We were saying this exact stuff this whole time. Like, this is just political. It's endemic. It's they're having these restrictions only for compliance, not because it actually does anything. We've been saying this from the very beginning. So it's sometimes they know that people are not going to. They're not paying that much attention to stuff like this. I mean, the vast majority of people are not online like we are on Twitter and everything like that, actually listening to this stuff. So they're just getting their stuff from the night news, and the distraction in Ukraine is going to just lead us right into, hey, COVID's over.
Yeah.
Please tell me you can hear me now.
Yes.
I'm so glad I spent all this money on like this expensive ass laptop. No, but they literally changed it, I think, that day from saying that over 90% of America was in like the COVID danger zone to now under 30%. And I've literally been getting like angry messages from people about like, oh, that's just because the vaccinated people are vaccinated. Like, there's nothing that these morons would not make excuses for.
Yeah.
I don't get how at this point people could not see it. And I don't know. I'm just very skeptical of all this stuff going away because they've taken so much power from this that I don't see them ever giving that up. I mean, maybe they've just kind of gotten what they wanted, or this was just sort of their test run for doing it in the future, seeing how quickly people just totally bent over for them. But I don't know. Like in New York, for example, they claim that first of all, it doesn't even really matter what they do because the mask mandate already ended, and you go anywhere in New York, I am always the only person not wearing a mask on the train. Yeah. You go outside, half the people have masks on. So it doesn't really matter, I don't think, what the government policy is. Like, they have trained people's minds and broken people's minds to such an extent that that's the far worst thing. And now they claim that they're ending the vaccine mandate. But if you pay attention to all of the articles about it, all the media coverage, I just see nothing but loopholes in the way that they're phrasing it every time. They're like, they might consider lifting indoor vaccine mandates, and they keep specifying indoor. Why? I'm not aware of any outdoor vaccine mandates. So to me, that just sounds like loophole after loophole after loophole that I'm not celebrating yet. I'm just waiting for. And even if they do that, it's like, I mean, I think we should mention that, like, we shouldn't celebrate too hard anyway, because there's nothing to say. We shouldn't be saying thank you to these people for destroying our lives for 2 years and then giving us back little pieces of it here and there. No.
Yeah.
And Mikey, you're the probably the most affected out of all of us, because I live in Georgia, where we haven't had mask mandates since June of the beginning of the pandemic. Like, we've only had mask mandates for 3 months. Remember, we lifted our mask mandates, and Trump hammered my governor because of that, because he didn't do it on his timeline. Can you say
that a little louder, Sarah? People forget that.
Exactly. And now he's running a primary candidate against him who lost his Senate bid last year. So enough about Georgia politics, but Carrie, you're in Texas too. And so I don't know how the mandates have been there, but I don't think you guys have had them very much at all either. But when you do first take off that mask, when everything kind of comes to, there's still a little bit of anxiety that somebody's going to yell at you in the store because everybody else is still wearing their mask because they have that same anxiety. Like, oh my God, they don't realize that they can live without their masks. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Control of the people. I do believe this was a test run. We know Bill Gates was talking about having war games essentially for the next one. And remember, the end goal is 2030. So to have the whole Great Reset by 2030.
What's interesting? I talked to a friend from Germany who is fully aware. I would say someone who's on the left and very intelligent, who I respect, and they're fully aware of the Great Reset thing, which was unusual for me. Usually when I talk about it with people on the left, first of all, they don't know what I'm talking about, and I have to say, go, look up Klaus Schwab, read the book that he put out about COVID and the Great Reset. It's all out there in public. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's in public. But anyway, this guy knew about all that, but he was saying it's not that big of a deal. It's just one public think tank. And that was new for me, to talk to someone who was aware of it and aware of everything they say. And so I was asking, it doesn't concern you that it looks like all of the Western governments are moving along this route of attacking private property owners and restricting individual rights, and all the stuff that's in the Great Reset seems to be happening? Is that just a coincidence? It's not some part of the Great Reset? And no, he thinks it's just, I guess he thinks it's just I think it's just a coincidence that these things are happening. But
their only concern in life is getting invited to dinner parties. That's all they care about, is having the equivalent of the bitchy cheerleaders to invite them to sit at their table. They would slit their mother's throat. They would give up all their children for anything other than being considered one of the bad people. That's literally all people care about.
I would say for most of them, that I know exactly the type of person you're talking about, but for this guy, no, I'm still thinking about him and why he holds that opinion, because that's not true for him. I think it's just an inability to maybe you don't want to reckon with something that's like the worst case scenario. If it seems very bleak, you would rather just discard a fact that's in front of you, that these things seem to be happening and there's this plan that's laid out. But it's easier for me to say psychologically, no, I don't want to contemplate that.
I just don't get how anyone could feel that way after the last 2 years. Like, unless they're just very shielded from it and haven't been affected. But I literally know people, like these people that I used to be friends with, some of them literally lost their businesses and their businesses were their whole lives that they started. They don't care. They won't say a word about it.
Well, Sara mentioned, because you're in New York, it's a lot different. And people have asked me to come visit New York a couple times the past year. And I
love you too much to ask you that.
I just kind of don't want to, because the stuff I hear out of it makes me.
I'll go to you.
Yeah. So what is that like? You're the only person who's standing at the subway platform not wearing a mask.
Every time on the car and the platform. You literally go to the park on a nice day. 90% more people wear masks today than in 2020. That's how much they've broken people's brains. But then those same people will make excuses when you hit them with like the stuff that we just talked about and try to get sort of some, get one little brain cell flashing from them and ask why that might be. Oh, that's just because the rates are low and vaccination. But then they won't follow that same train of logic for why they're covering their faces up still.
Yeah,
there is no logic. But in terms of being here, it's just miserable. I never dreamed I would be like a segregated second-class citizen.
I have seen a lot of people online, and I wonder if these people are more in the blue, the cities like New York, who are now that this memo came out and the Democrats are changing course based on polling and they're saying COVID's over and now we have Ukraine to focus on and we're done with COVID policies. There have been a lot of these virtue signaling posts on Twitter. Have you guys seen these? Where the people are taking about their masks. I've seen people taking pictures of themselves in their mask and saying, I'm going to keep wearing it.
They're doing the same thing that they were doing last year, where they said, I'm going to keep wearing my mask because out of fear of being mistaken for a Trump supporter, right? They've been doing that for how long?
It is.
I mean, yeah. And it's virtue signaling, but I also think that it is that we've caused that because of all this. Now we've created this, this high society with a lot of with more mental health issues. We know the pandemic caused mental health issues, but now it's so much, and then now you're going to see a lot of anxiety disorders being put out because people can't take their masks off, or else they have severe anxiety attacks now. I think you're going to see
it
that.
almost makes you wonder if that's part of the goal, that all of these people, all of these kids who have just had their mental health destroyed, oh, that's okay. Take your antidepressants with your cereal and eat your hormones with your vegetables, Timmy.
Yeah, I think I'm worried about the same thing, about the psychological effects. And it seems like we're finally in a place where we can start, it seems like the mainstream media is sort of open to broaching that conversation, and they haven't been for 2 years, but they're doing it in this sort of as if they have no complicity in it, as if it's something they're just removed from and reporting on, like, hey, look at these increased anxiety rates in children.
That's why Defiant L's gets it right so many times on Twitter, because he posts their hypocrisy. That's all he posts.
And he got banned for that for a moment.
Yeah. But it's interesting because you just see it over and over and over, them doing this. Even Joy Behar said on the View that she was not going to take her mask off for the foreseeable future.
I think a paper. Well,
maybe you should cover. Maybe you should keep your face covered anyways. But we're fine. That might do the rest of the world a favor. But yeah.
So
the rest of the people should just unmask.
I have a personal confession. I was talking about this with my husband. For 2 years, I think I would, even objectively looking at the way I've thought about people who wear masks, I've been pretty non-judgmental and tolerant, like for the most part. I mean, certainly if I see someone wearing a mask in their car, I think they're an idiot. But for the most part, if I'm at a store or something and there are people wearing masks, it's like, I haven't really judged them. It's like, I don't know their situation. I don't know. I know that there's all this mass hysteria and fear, and I don't know if they have pre-existing conditions and they might be elderly, and who knows? And I don't care. It's like, you do you, I'll do me. As long as they leave me alone, because I haven't really worn one at all the whole 2 years. And most people have left me alone in Texas. So I haven't really cared. But something changed in me recently, and I wonder if you guys are feeling this too. Maybe it's because the mainstream media is now comfortable saying, hey, we're ending these policies because of polling data. But now when I see people out, I was at Target the other day and just seeing maybe 50% of the people still wearing masks in Target, even after the Democrats have moved away from the position. I feel kind of a disgust towards them that I didn't used to feel. And
I felt that for a while.
I feel a little guilty about it, and I'm trying to understand what that feeling is, but it's just sort of, it's been 2 years. Mm-hmm. And what you're doing, I know that they think they're helping. You're not helping anyone. You're hurting kids. You're hurting people who look at you and see, oh, there must be, like, especially toddlers and stuff, there must be some reason for this. This is what humans do. There's a reason to be fearful. That makes me angry. And so I'm having these new kind of, I mean, I would say contemptuous feelings towards people wearing them in public that I didn't used to have. And I don't know. Is that something that you guys are feeling too?
I haven't. Oh, yeah. I honestly, I felt the same way as you, and I kind of still feel that way. Maybe it's just because it's been that way for so long here. It's been, anybody can, if you want to wear a mask here for so long that it's like, and I know people that wear, that's some more on the liberals, but when they feel sick, they put them on, but then they take them off and all this other stuff. And like you said, there are people still getting COVID right now. I had COVID a month ago, and I wore a mask when I had to go to the pharmacy. So that's the only time I put a mask on in a while. I just wish they would ease a lot of the other restrictions, like airplanes and everything like that, because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I'm looking at some of the chat right now. People mixed feelings. Pirate Tomsky says, I don't judge people for wearing them, but I don't wear one. And Dom says, I feel the exact same thing. Yeah, I'm struggling with it. I don't want to feel it. I want to get back to that place you're in, Sarah, that's like, I don't know why you're wearing.
I totally disagree. To borrow a phrase, it's not enough to be what would be the equivalent to it? It's not enough to be anti-mask. You have to be actively anti-mask.
It's not enough to not wear a mask. You have to be actually anti-mask.
We need to mock these people. We need to embarrass them, scorn them, and judge them all the time in the open, frequently.
I have no issue with some of that. I have no issue with people that are doing that, though, that are mocking and everything like that. I have no issue with it.
No, I know.
As long as you're not having the government tell people to, forcing people to take their masks off, then we're good to go, you know?
Oh, I would love that if they were just like, no mask, burn them all.
Yeah, no mask ever. No.
Yeah.
I'm a libertarian in that sense, where even if I don't agree with it, I
mean, that's not going to happen anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I think the masks were the gateway to this entire thing. Everyone just capitulated to it. And I mean, I remember reading the studies about them at the beginning and being like, oh, this doesn't do shit. A piece of cloth on your face does nothing. So it was never about a virus. It was never about anything. And this whole thing has just been the weakness of many, many, many people on the right who have capitulated to this and allowed this and didn't want to make a fuss. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to know, this video is not going to be monetized.
Oh yeah.
The video is not going to be monetized, so you send us.
Oh wait, you're not monetized yet anyway.
I'm not monetized anyway. We need. This is a new. This is a good time to say. This is a new channel. If it's your first time here, please subscribe. Yeah, I still need a certain number of watch hours before I can monetize. So this is the free period where I can say whatever.
But I mean, how many Republicans will even be like actively anti-mask? I feel like you could count on one hand, maybe two.
Well, okay,
Trump would never speak out against them.
This is a good segue because I don't know if you guys saw one of the other big news items this week was DeSantis in Florida. And for anyone who hasn't seen this, let's just play it. I think I can make this work. Let's see. Share again. Thanks for bearing with me, guys. I'm doing the tech today. Here we go. Boom. Can you guys see that?
Now we can. Oh, I just figured out how to get the chat.
Is there no sound?
No, there's not any sound.
Can I do the voices?
Click the bottom right corner of the video.
Oh yeah, you have the thingy on.
Oh,
the speaker's off.
But I could do the. I could.
You could. Okay. So this is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
You do not have to wear those masks. I mean, please take them off. Honestly, it's not doing anything. We got to stop with this COVID theater. If you want to wear it, fine, but this is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Look at this kid behind him.
All right. Well, it's good to be at U.S.
And that is what leadership looks like. Boom. Can I just say, I'm such a hypocrite because I will make fun of these people and think, oh, it's so disgusting. These people like the Cuomo sexuals and all that, who it's like they have such an emotional connection to their politicians. And then Ron DeSantis speaks and my nipples start tingling. Please run. Please run. Please run. Oh.
I saw something Josh Slocum said about that clip on Twitter, and I completely agreed. He said, this is normal. We've been in such a stage of abnormality that, of course, the media, if you guys haven't seen that clip yet, I don't know how, because the legacy media ran with it, and all of the headlines were, Governor DeSantis bullies kids into taking off the mask. Like, no, he told them this is theater, which is true. You don't have to wear it if you don't want to. And some of them chose to take it off and one didn't. It was up to them.
Yeah. There's
no bullying.
This leads to, I mean, I knew this was on the list, so coming into this, but yeah, it wasn't bullying at all. He said take them off, and then he said, if you want to wear them, fine. But it looks ridiculous. I think that's fine. That's great. I mean, he didn't force them to take it off. If he was to force them to take it off, it would be one thing. And I also saw people were saying it was high school kids. Was it? Because it was at University of South Florida. Mm-hmm. So they kept saying high school kids, but it was at a university. And both of those, two of them were on the news. If you saw the clips of it too, the one that took it off like right behind him and had the smirk on his face, like the big smile. His mom was really mad about him taking it off. Like he felt like he had, and then they made it seem like he felt like he had to.
Castrating bowl.
Oh,
he looked like he wanted to.
He smiled.
Did you see the mother trying to prod him of what to say? Like they asked the kid, did you feel pressured by DeSantis? And he was like, and then the mother's there like,
wait, I have this clip. I really want to watch this one because I think this mom is disgusting. But it's also funny. It's one of those things you have to be, you have to kind of laugh at it. Otherwise, I think it would just make you so angry. Okay. Look at her face on this. So his mom, and by the way, this says he is a high school kid. But his mom took him, the black kid who took his mask off, took him and paraded him in front of the media. And just watch this closely. We'll see. See if you can see something immediately visually weird here.
Yeah, he's wearing a mask.
Oh. The eyes are bugging.
And he's looking at this adult authority and is telling him, oh, you didn't have to wear the mask.
What was your reaction when you heard the governor tell you and your classmates remove your mask?
A bit of surprise and shock, more of, okay, this authority figure is asking me to do something that I know is probably going to end up being controversial. So I took mine off.
Controversial?
Pressure by the governor to do that?
Look at
her. Yeah, look at her.
A little. It was more of a pressure of an adult figure asking me to do something, and it's just like, all right.
But that's exactly what his mom just said.
It's shocking.
Yes.
That the governor told these kids, take off your mask. He pretty much said, take off your mask, it's stupid. And take off your mask. Your parents don't matter. Even though I'm telling you, parents matter. and he's telling my minor child to take off his mask. He's putting us at risk.
Look at her eyes.
So,
There
oh
it
yeah,
is.
so I was upset, very upset.
Yeah. That creeps me out for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know where the father is.
Well, she might be at risk. We don't know.
So she's not wearing a mask
Exactly.
during this interview, but forcing him to wear one, and then that, like you pointed out, Mikey, that sideways, you can see her offside. He's repeating the words that she just used, Sarah, like Sarah said. He says an authority figure, and that kind of it like tumbles out of his mouth awkwardly because it's not something he would normally
vocabulary
say. Exactly. He's repeating, it was an authority figure who told me to do it, and she's just sitting there smiling approvingly. It's just,
eyes bugging.
Yeah. I thought
we see this a lot. We see this a lot with leftists when it comes to the kids and stuff. Remember the interviews and stuff with that Desmond Amazing kid too? It was exactly the same. It was like off to the side. It was like, yeah. And it was like just they're looking to their parents for approval, and you always see that too. And the parents are like right there, like, keep going.
Yeah.
And also she said something that I think was so profound, which first of all, it's obviously not even true though, that she's like, he's putting her own child, and she's saying he could be putting us at risk. This has to be the only time in history, if you go back to like the caveman days, the fucking prairie wagon days, this has to be the first time in history where we're supposed to mentally prioritize the lives of the old over the lives of the young. And told that the lives of children don't matter, the lives of teenagers, college students don't matter because some, 110-year-old might catch a cold.
I think it's
so backwards.
For you to call her mommy dearest really hits, I think, because we've also the past couple of years seem to have ushered in this place of parents. We've seen a lot of parents sort of offering their children up in a sacrificial way. And I've seen a lot of these posts where parents are taking photos of their kids in the mask or their kids getting the shot, even with their kid crying. There's that one famous one that went around, I can't get out of my head, of the mom behind her kid who's crying, her toddler, as he's getting a shot, and her eyes are gleaming behind her mask. Just so delightful. She's delighting in it. And so I think there's something really, I don't know, I think it's something very disturbing happening.
It's evil. It looks like evil running through them with the way that they look at that, like in glee, as their kid's crying and they're getting a shot, when it's really not. They don't need it at that age. They're not affected. And we have the data out of Switzerland that anybody under the age of 30, it doesn't do anything.
I'm telling you, all these people, their entire lives just revolve around being considered one of the good people. And otherwise, it's like, take my business, take my kids, inject me with whatever the hell you want, inject my child, cover my kid's face up, turn my 3-year-old son into put him in a dress, turn him into a girl, eat your hormones. Just don't call me a right-winger. Yeah. That is all they care about. So for me, I'm not like, I wouldn't say I'm like a nice person like you, Carrie. So like, I'm
not nice.
Super judgmental. I'm like, I don't give a damn about these people anymore.
Don't call me nice.
Please.
I really actually, something Jordan Peterson said a few years ago that really stuck with me, and I've thought about it a long time since then, is about the difference between nice and kind.
That's true. And you're kind.
Thank you. I try to be. I'm not always kind either, but I'm trying to be. But nice, I think he had a good point. He was saying nice is sort of I'm going to mangle it. I'm just paraphrasing based on my bad memory. But he was talking about how being nice is sort of about pleasing people around you. It's sort of a fakeness to it. And that made a lot of sense to me, because there are people who try to make nice. It's not that they're being kind. It's about their own appearance. If that makes sense.
Nice is different than good.
That's true. That's very true. So one of the things that I want to do a future show on, and maybe I'll have you guys back for the show, but I shared something about this on Twitter recently. I'm in a lot of these groups. So speaking of parenting, I'm in a lot of these groups for parents of transgender kids. And I just I'm in there because I want to see what they're saying. And it's very much an orthodoxy. So parents come into these groups, and a lot of times they're coming in, I'm so confused. I'm not sure what to do. My son just told me that he's a girl, and I'm going through grieving and mourning over his name and his identity. And I'm trying to, and immediately once they come into the group, there's one way of thinking about it. There's one way of talking about it. And there's one way of dealing with it. There's nothing else. And anyone who has a differing opinion gets booted from the group. And so I've watched these parents come in. Sometimes they're on the fence about how they want to treat this. And if they stay, they end up becoming part of the Borg, and they all start repeating the same stuff. And so people will jump on them, like their first posts in the group. Sometimes they'll use the wrong pronouns, right? And then everyone will no, first thing you need to do, validate your child's new identity. And so I'm watching all these moms in these groups, and a lot of them, again, I want to talk about this again later because I haven't fully developed my thoughts on it, but I wanted to see what you thought about this one thing. It's mostly women. Most of them don't have a man in the home. They talk about the ex-husband, or if they do mention a husband in the home, they'll say he's aloof, or he doesn't have an opinion. That the one I shared, yeah? They'll say he doesn't have an opinion. Or they'll say he's not supportive and it's combative in the home.
And then they get a court order.
Yeah, so what do you guys think? I don't want to put all the blame on what's happening with kids and with parents on women, but what is it about women that makes them more likely, I think, to fall into just this sort of groupthink about things?
Because women are more emotional in their thought process. They're not as logical as men. And we see it when we talk about politics too. We know that women overwhelmingly vote for Democrats, right? So because of their emotional thought process. And so they're more sympathetic to their kids, and it scares them. So they want to do whatever they can that's right. And so they go into these groups, and you're right. I've seen these groups as well. My mom, when I first came out, my mom went into one of these Facebook support groups, and she saw that something was wrong, and she started asking me like all this stuff. I'm like, no, that's just the way that this leftist ideology is pushing stuff this way. Those people are not looking out for the best interest of trans people. And then the trans people are the same way, because I've been kicked out of 2 Reddit groups for having wrong things. So,
what is your wrong thing that gets you booted from a trans group?
Well, I said that trans trenders exist, and when the detransition rate skyrockets, it's going to hurt actual trans people, and they did not like that. And then I also had just some liberty-minded anti-communist thoughts, because there's a lot of communist rhetoric in these chat rooms. It's all, I mean, for some reason and this is what I'm working on a project right now, talking about how queer theory is the CRT for gay people and how it's taking over as well. And this will, if they give me a solo speech at Freedom Fest, I'm going to actually present this thought there as well. But yeah, queer theory is taking over. And so it's very much in line with Marxism and communism. And that's what we're seeing out of the radicals. Now, again, the vast majority of trans people are not what we're seeing online. It's just like every other organization. Even the LGBT is not the same as the queer community, because the LGBT voted up their vote for Donald Trump to 29% compared to 19% in 2016. So
29%?
Yeah. Yeah. So you see the numbers in polls of the adults of the community and who's voting, and those numbers are going up for Republicans, yet we're seeing more and more of this queer theory being pushed out there. And why is that? It's because like the 8% rule, it's the 8% crazies that get all the attention. And the average LGBT person is not on board with that.
And I think it's already really hurting trans people, and it's creating a lot of animosity towards trans people who have nothing to do with it, which I always try to convey to people, that this alphabet LGBT XYZ LMNOP agenda has absolutely nothing to do with gay people, trans people, lesbians, bisexual. It has nothing to do with them. It is the reason that there is such a focus on gender with children is that it is a very easy way to get them into this cult for life. When you break their spirit, when you break their mind, you break their body, you own them mind, body, and soul. And so they present this to kids in a very colorful, technicolor rainbow package, and then they slip in the communist rhetoric.
Yeah. Think about it. They separate everybody, just like CRT. They separate everybody into oppressed classes. You have the oppressed LGBT, and then heteronormativity is what they use in this. And it's really is derived a lot from feminist theory as well. And so you start to move into where women are oppressed and all this. And so then they also are postmodernist. So they think that there's no absolute. So they move away from feminist theory because anybody can identify as a woman, and that's the whole social construct and everything like that they've tried to create. The only thing that Marxism doesn't support in terms of queer theory is sex. Marxists believe in biological sex in the terms of procreation, but they do believe that you can change your gender. So it's a very interesting topic that I really just started diving into like the last few days, because I'm trying to put a video out about it and build all this stuff on it. So it's really interesting.
Do you think they're?
Go ahead. Sorry, go. No, go on. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to ask about, you say they still believe in biological sex and they separate from gender, but I've seen that falling apart as well within the ideology. I've started to see them questioning.
Queer theory doesn't, and postmodernism doesn't.
Yeah.
But Marxism does. Only for the points of procreation do they believe in biological sex, though.
That's amazing. It's so first it was, we acknowledge biological sex is real, but gender is different. And so what we're talking about is gender, and you can identify as different genders and 100 different genders. But now it's sort of moving like, okay, we also think biological sex is a social construct and not a real thing. Why? Well, because there are people with genetic abnormalities. That's why.
Yeah.
But
that's a relatively new idea, I think, inside of queer theory, because queer theory, like CRT, started back in the 50s and 60s and all this area back there. It's really this newer queer theory with a bunch of people like Anna Maria Jagos, I guess her name is, that she just recently authored the book that's called Queer Theory. I haven't read it, so that's what I'm digging into. But they're changing the definitions to be more postmodern.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Mike?
What we were talking about before in terms of that mother with that kid also, and I think it's also related to trans kids, is I think there is a certain type of female who they're single mothers who feminize their sons and turn their sons into their girlfriends, basically. They're sort of husband replacement. And I think that's what's happening in a lot of these instances. They're desperate, lonely, single women who have been lied to, who have been told that certain things in life will make them happy, and they're not happy once they get to a certain age. And so they have to start playing, doing science experiments on their kids. It's so sick.
Yeah. There's also, I think, this element of it's the toddlers with tiaras thing going on, where the parents are sort of living through their trans kids, the moms. And it's this badge that they have of coolness to be able to say, my kid is this special new oppressed minority, and to hold them up as almost as a trophy and live through their transition. And I just imagine for the ones who are, as you call them, transgenders, and I believe transgenders is totally a thing too, and separate from people who actually experience gender dysphoria. For the ones who are transgenders, it's like, how do you let everyone around you down if you decide that you made a mistake?
Yeah, that's the difficulty, is not only let everybody down that you've told everybody you're this, and now you're changing your mind, and so that affects on your psyche as well. But then look at how they demonize, and this is a Alinsky tactic, and they demonize anybody who leaves the cult, right? So you detransition, they cut you off, and they attack you harder than anybody else. And I always say this about you guys, because you guys both came from the left. I'm a former conservative. You guys get attacked so much more than I do, because I've always been on the right. You guys left the cult of the left, and so Alinsky will always take that to create fear, to not leave that line of thinking, that ideology.
Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I haven't been keeping up with the chat very much. It's hard for me to do the tech and the chat. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, we don't have super chats yet. But I just see a couple people saying stuff. I'm going to read out a few of these. Let's see. Dion, thank you. Dion says that's the whole point. Make it a huge cost to change. Yeah, it's the sunken cost fallacy, because if you've invested so much time and so many other people's energy in your transition, and your mom is so gung-ho about it, and to the point of making it her identity as well. Like some of these moms in these groups, if you go to their profile on social media, their whole profile is, I support my trans daughter. And, they're got the profile picture, the cover picture, everything is about them having a trans kid. They go to the parades, what have you, to then say, Mom, I think I made a mistake. It's like, that's sunken cost. You've gotten other people invested in it. And so I think there's probably a lack of incentive for those kids to even question what they're doing,
And that's if they're even able to go back.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I should say that's if they're even able to go back at that point. I mean, when you have 14-year-old girls being given double mastectomies, and people are okay with that, I don't know what planet I'm living on.
I just saw a post the other day, because I'm deeply in tune with a lot of this, from somebody that I follow, that they were like, so I just found out that the person that did my top surgery, they said that they're getting, like, every other surgery is a revision on their double mastectomies.
Wow. Oh, so trying to reconstruct
so
breast?
Basically giving them implants now, yes, because they took them and now they're giving them back. Yeah.
Yeah, see,
that's how much it is.
Does the Hippocratic Oath just like not exist anymore?
Right. Well, here's the thing: is surgeons are surgeons. They have to, and all of these places require therapist letters to get surgeries, even if you're over the age of 18, which I don't agree with. If you're over the age of 18, I really don't care. But under the age of 18, I don't believe in surgeries. But at least for everybody right now, they are requiring therapist letters. And for when I had surgery, I had to get 2 therapist letters, one from a PhD. So it's not the surgeon's fault. It's more the mental health system. And we have activist therapists out there using the gender affirming model. And that's why we're seeing it spike up right now. And just one more point, what I was going to say is that what we see is, and I don't know, have you guys watched the HBO show Transhood?
No.
So it is an interesting show because it's an interesting show, and I actually liked it because there are 2 trans kids that you would absolutely be like, yes, you probably are trans. Just watching the story, I mean, they absolutely fit the bill. And the 2 that weren't, and one actually was the 4-year-old that desisted by the end. And his mom went from being so supportive, so everything, to basically believe trans people don't exist at the end. And that is what we're seeing a lot of right now is once they desist or detransition, then it completely changes their whole worldview on what trans is, and then they don't believe it exists at all. So that's how it hurts us even more. Because then they're like, you guys don't exist. And then they become, was it Steve Younger?
Yeah.
Well, starting though too.
Speaking of, do you mean Jeff Younger, the dad? Or I don't know who Steve Younger is.
Yeah. I think I might have said his first name wrong. I know. Jeff Younger, yes.
Jeff Younger. So what do you mean by that? Because all I know about Jeff Younger is, for anybody who doesn't know, he's the dad in Texas who lost custody of his daughter, who at the age of 2 or 3, his son. It was his son. So he had twin boys, and one of them liked some feminine looking things. Like I know that he liked a purse that had a unicorn on it, and he got into a custody battle with his ex-wife, and he ended up losing custody, and his son is being transitioned. And so he's been speaking. He just recently tried to speak at University of North Texas. But what do you mean by you become Jeff Younger?
He doesn't believe trans people exist. He said it in the video, you can see.
Okay.
So that's when you become him. I feel for him. I don't think he should be going through what he's going through. And but it saddens me that because of what his wife or his ex-wife has done and what the court system has done, he's taken this hardline stance against trans people in general. I don't know if he ever had that, but and so I'm just saying people get to the point where when they've seen their child detransition, they just completely feel like that it must not exist because I fell for it. So you guys are all just falling for this ruse or this feeling that's not real.
The thing is, I feel like who wouldn't feel that way if someone had that done to their child? Like, who the hell wouldn't feel that way? And the thing is, too, no wonder, like, because these ridiculous gender activists actually have the most narrow-minded view of gender expression of theirs is more regressive and narrow-minded than the most conservative person in the world, because they think that if a girl likes sports or is a tomboy, or if a boy likes feminine things, that makes him not a real boy, that makes her not a real girl. So when you have these very young boys, for example, like a 2-year-old boy, when you give him that option, of course a child is going to prefer shiny, colorful, pretty things. And when you tell him that isn't just a shiny, pretty thing, but that means you're a girl now, of course they're going to think that they're girls.
Yeah. I think I saw something, and it might have been something you posted the other day, but it was like the vast majority of, all trans people knew that something was different at the age of 4 or around that area. But 80% of the people that feel like something was different around that time end up desisting by the age of 16.
Yeah.
But that 20% also felt it too. So it's like, I think I use the term, like, it's like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square. You know, they're not it's not mutually exclusive, because just because I knew something was different at the age of 4 doesn't mean that everybody that feels something's different at that age is also trans.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very common.
What happened was that.
Sorry, I'm just going to grab a drink. I'll be right back.
Oh, that's fine. There used to be therapists. Who's that guy? His last name was Blanchard. There used to be therapists who would treat kids with gender dysphoria, or who thought they had gender dysphoria. And he was one of the ones who found that, hey, if I'm working with these kids through young adulthood, and there's a certain number of them who actually come to terms with their biological sex, and that may not have been the underlying issue, and they desist, like you said. What happened to those doctors is when this ideology became sort of taken up by the mainstream, those doctors, a lot of them got put out of business, and they got demonized.
Well, yeah, so Deborah So talks about that being the only person in the room and being pushed out of academia as well for the same stuff. And she wrote the book End of Gender. But I'm trying to think of who. So Blanchard is the one who coined the term autogynephilia. So that's what. So that was Blanchard.
I didn't know that. Okay.
He actually blocks me on. He actually blocked me on Twitter for some reason. I don't know. But now the Lisa Littman study, which is a flawed study, but it's the reason why it's a flawed study, but it's not so flawed anymore in terms of current discourse, is because she's the one that studied a bunch of children, and it was like that anybody. The reason why it's flawed is because it was taken with anybody that had gender nonconforming tendencies, not just people that said that they were trans, but gender nonconforming tendencies, and then 80% of those people desisted by the age of 16. It didn't take just people that said that they were trans. So that's the flaw in the study. But still, but that's what they're turning trans into, is anybody who has gender nonconforming tendencies. So now it's becoming even more relevant.
Right. It's also becoming very cool, like a very cool thing to claim. Hi, everybody. Welcome, Libby.
Hey.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. I know you know Mikey, but I don't think you've met Sara Higdon before.
Hi, Sarah.
No, I have not. Hi.
Pleasure. Nice to meet you.
If I was saying, I follow you and everything.
Oh, cool. I'll follow
Yeah,
you
I've used
after
some of your articles, especially like the CNN articles in some of my videos. So I always put the link in the description usually when I use post-millennial stuff.
Nice. That's
So
awesome. Glad to hear it.
Amazing.
we were just talking about, we haven't started talking about what happened with Jeff Younger yet, although we did mention him. And now that you're here, I do want to talk about, speaking of your articles, Libby has a piece out in the Post Millennial right now about what happened at the University of North Texas the other night. Maybe if Pirate Tomsky is still here, he can link that in the chat for us, or somebody else can. But can you tell us a little bit about, I don't know if people have seen the videos yet. It was really disturbing to me. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, so the Texas Young Conservatives at the University of North Texas had invited Jeff Younger, who's a candidate for the state Senate, I believe, in Texas, to come speak to their group. And they printed out flyers. They weren't expecting protests. They weren't expecting a lot of people to come. It was really just for their group, and that's what they were hosting. But word got out, as it tends to, that Younger was going to be speaking, and so mostly activists and protesters showed up at his talk. He tried to talk. He was harassed, shouted down. He was called a fascist. All of these things. And it was interesting too, when I shared the article, people were like, oh, he doesn't pay his child support. He's just this deadbeat dad, all of that stuff. But his backstory is that his ex-wife at this point tried to gender transition their 3-year-old. He was opposed to the gender transition of the 3-year-old. The child has gone on, is like, I think 14 now. And is still undergoing gender transition. The mother is very insistent that the child is trans. The father, when he has had the child with them, is pretty sure that the child is not trans. So it seems like there's definitely something going on between these parents where, one of them thinks the child is definitely trans, the other one doesn't. And the one who thinks the child is trans has all of the control, has all of the ability to get a diagnosis and to get medical transition underway for this kid. So it seems like a pretty tragic story to me, a very bad custody situation, a horrifying marriage likely, if this is what's going on between them. And this child, like so many children of divorced parents, is stuck in the middle with one parent saying, be this way, and another parent saying, be this other way. So Younger was shouted down. He eventually was escorted from the building, as was this woman, Kelly Nider, who was a student who's with the Texas Young Republicans or Young Conservatives group. They were escorted out. Younger was escorted away in a car. And Kelly was, who I spoke with yesterday when I started researching the story, she wasn't able to get into a car, and eventually police escorted her into a separate building where they tried to get into classrooms. They eventually ended up locked in a janitor's closet while people were chasing after them. And the people who were chasing after them were activists. It's not clear that they were all students. Some of the people that were in the clips that were shared on social media of the talk were trans, and they said that they were trans. And Younger was saying to them, there's no such thing as trans person. The one student who sort of did this weird primal scream thing at him. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Oh gosh. Yes.
That was insane. She's like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I apologize.
The scream of the wolf.
Screaming at him, that he's trans, and just freaking out. 17 years old. Again, a minor at this point, at the university, probably a first-year student. So that's the story. That's what happened at North Texas. Totally insane. Also, Kelly, there was a petition to get her expelled last semester, to get her removed from campus. it's finally her last semester. So, I wish her the best in
And this is in
in getting out of
Texas.
there safely. This is in Texas. This is in North Texas. Yeah. Denton, I believe. Denton, Texas. So, yeah. Pretty fascinating situation. And Younger, of course, is not the only dad who has been dealing with this kind of thing. There's a dad in British Columbia, very similar situation, except in that case, the child was born female. And we're seeing a fair bit of this.
What do you think is going to, I don't know if you have opinions on this, but being in Texas, I'm trying to keep up with what's happening here. And I was telling these guys I'm in a group for parents of transgender kids, and they all seem pretty alarmed about Governor Abbott's directive that anyone who's trying to medically transition a child is committing child abuse, and encouraging people to report parents and doctors who are doing that. Do you see some kind of big legal battle happening here? Or I've seen parents.
It's really interesting. I mean, from my perspective, I'm a mom. My son's 11. Me and my son's dad we're not on the same page about lots of things, but we're perpetually on the same page about what's right for our son, which I'm very grateful for. And we've been opposed to any medicalization at all, right? So he's not going to be taking Adderall just because he can't sit still in class. He's not going to be taking anything. If he's diagnosed with some ADHD, the prescription is not going to be any kind of pharmaceuticals at all. He had a condition when he was born. He had like a weird deformity. We had to deal with all of that. He's already dealt with enough. It's done. If my child came home and said that he was trans, that he wanted to dress differently, that he wanted to participate in different kind of activities, although I don't know what that'd be. He basically plays video games. I'd be like, okay, but you're not taking any drugs. You're not taking heroin. You're not taking cocaine. You're not taking Lupron. You're not taking Adderall. You're not taking anything to help you sleep. Like, here's a cup of tea, nice little chamomile. So that's my perspective on that. I'm very opposed to medicalizing children at all for some sort of mental condition. I'm like 100% opposed to that. So I would be opposed to, also if he came home and said that he wanted to paint his nails, I would say no, but I would say the exact same thing to a daughter. So, my position is not different based on that. My father was incredibly into like none of this, no makeup, nothing, to the extent that like I don't even know how to put on makeup properly. I never got that figured out.
Same.
So yeah, I don't know. I tried, actually. Whatever, that's a different story. I ended up with lipstick recently, like everywhere. I was trying to go to a party and look cool, and I 100% failed. Yeah. So I do think that it's pretty interesting. I think that parents have given way too much control to the pharmaceutical industry across the board. In the 90s and the early 2000s, we saw kids getting medicalized for all kinds of stupid reasons. Boys who can't sit still in class. Surprise. Surprise, boys can't sit still in class. Girls who are depressed because of their body image. Surprise. Welcome to being a teenager. But I do think we're going to be facing some legal battles. It's interesting. It's like the battle of the governors right now. You have Abbott, DeSantis, Kim Reynolds in Iowa, all opposed. You have Kathy Hochul trying to push for male-bodied persons to be housed in women's prisons, just for saying so. Which I think is, I think that's a little wacky. I think there's probably on a case-by-case basis. But like just overall in general, I don't think that that's a reasonable undertaking. We're seeing all kinds of things in Canada with that. Women being taken out of prisons to have abortions because they're being housed with individuals who say that they're female but have fully functioning genitalia, which like results in pregnancy, which there's issues there.
Probably the worst one I've seen is in, I think, the UK, where, and it might even been here, but the person self-ID'd as a female after he was, it was like 7 years he had molested a child. a young girl, and then he got put in the juvenile detention facility with girls simply because he identified and clearly male looking, looks just like and he's got a beard.
That doesn't seem it doesn't seem like they're taking the needs of the women who are in that prison at all into consideration.
No.
It's horrible.
Libby, I want to go ahead, Mikey.
I was just going to say, I'm so thankful that you're someone who's speaking out about it. It's horrible. Not just, I mean, even more so what they're doing with kids with pharmaceuticals. Everybody.
Your audio is sped up again.
No! Still?
Yeah.
I'm saying something.
Yeah, you might have to leave and come back. But that's okay. Libby, I'm going to pull up your articles for anybody who hasn't seen it.
Okay.
Oh, I saw an ad there that I didn't want to see. So this is in the Post Millennial. It's called Far Left Protesters Shut Down University of North Texas event featuring father who lost custody of trans child. And some of the video footage in this piece reminds me of the kind of college mobs that we saw happening back in 2017. And I think blessedly, I haven't anyway seen a lot of this in the past couple of years, maybe because it went mainstream and left the colleges. And so it was out at the BLM riots and stuff. They didn't have to do it. But this really took me back a couple of years. These are the students. Let's see if we can play this. Yeah, so that's just a taste of what happened.
Democracy looks like.
Yeah.
Same. It's the same.
What was really disturbing to me, it's not just seeing the mob mentality, but online, the people who originally shared these videos are leftists, and all the comments from adults who supportive. That bugged me out.
I find it very creepy that this is being pushed on kids almost as a way to justify, gender transition for adults. But adults don't really need to justify what they want to do because they're adults.
Absolutely.
What's the deal? It's hard enough being a kid, without all of this, having all of this. And so much of it is very trendy, like my son tells me that this is very trendy in his school. There's like what does he call them? There's like the Rainbow Brigade, and they come in contact with like the BLM Brigade, and then they disagree about things, and then one person's a racist and the other one's homophobic and all kinds of things. So
yeah, and remember, Carrie, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, that it has become the goth kids, except for with activism. It's the goth kids.
That's fascinating.
It's the whole trend there, except for now they have something that they can fight for, and it's being fed to them, and it's being approved by teachers and stuff like that. So it's really interesting, fascinating the way that it's going. And Libby, you weren't here earlier. I'm working on some pieces right now when it comes to talking about how queer theory is the CRT of gay people. And so
it is. And when you look at academics, critical gender theory and critical race theory are being pushed hand in hand. The gender studies departments are the same departments as the race studies department. And it's funny because I don't know, I'm probably way older than everybody, but when I was a kid, the idea that you would go to school to study writing was absurd. It was like, oh, you'll get no job. And now it's like, we don't have to worry about the people studying poetry. We have to worry about the people that are totally entranced with gender and race theory. That's the real concern. Poets, God bless them. I miss a poet,
You hear me now, by the way?
Yes, you're good. Thanks for returning.
Glad I spent all this money on a MacBook.
Somebody asked, I don't know if you want to share, but G-Man, by the way, I did figure out, thank you, Sarah, for messaging me to take that comment off the screen. I figured it out. So G-Man asks, how old is Libby's son?
Oh, he's 11.
And he's already aware of the Rainbow Brigade and everything.
Oh, for a long time now, even with remote learning and everything. It's very prevalent. It's like that and like critical race theories all over the place.
Yeah, it's like we were
So
talking
he
about.
comes
We
in
talked about
and
before
talks
too.
about
Race
it,
theory
you
is
know.
not being taught anywhere.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, the thing is, critical race theory is not being taught. Critical gender theory is not being taught. Instead, these theories are used as the backbone, the foundation of curriculum and pedagogy. So it's not that kids are learning critical race theory. This is just the universe that they are existing in is entirely formed with critical race theory and critical gender theory, because all of the teachers, they go to Bank Street, they go to Teachers College, you know, they go to all of these very prestigious educational institutions in New York State. I'm sure it's true in other places. I think definitely New York City. I'm not sure about the whole state, but you have to have a master's degree in education to teach. You have to have a master's degree. So, and the more master's degrees you get as a teacher, the more money you can make, right? Like you get more money based on your educational level. Totally different than in journalism, turns out.
Yeah, and
Anyway.
they're not being taught. It's not being taught, but what they're doing is they're putting it into math problems. Like if so and so is black and they have this many things, how oppressed are they? Type questions.
Right. And there's a lot of stuff about that, right? And there's like there was recently a Spirit Week. There was this like whole Spirit Week, and they used to do Spirit Week, and it was like everyone wears school colors, and there's a pep rally. Now it's like there's like a day where there's like a rainbow day. There's like one very special rainbow day. There is one day for school spirit where you wear your school colors. There's another day that's for your culture where you wear colors that represent your culture and stuff. So I said to my son, I was like, what do you want to do for this one? Would you like to wear red, white, and blue and a crucifix? You know, we're American Christians. So that's all we got. And he was like, no, Mom, they don't mean that kind of culture. I'm just gonna wear my normal clothes. And I was like, okay, got a big crucifix for you. A little hat, you know.
He's like, Mom, I'm trying to be
like,
cool.
No, he's not even trying to be cool. He's just like, I don't want to get beat up. Like, I'm not even trying.
Did they ever have for you the one I used to hate? Oh, sorry, the one I used to hate the most. Yeah. They used to have the Day of Silence.
No.
It was some LGBT bullshit when I was in high school. The Day of
That's
Silence.
Awful.
Where people had to wear tape over their mouths and not say anything because of the silence and oppression that gay people live in. And I was the only one every year who would get in trouble for that fucking Day of Silence.
I have never known a gay person who is silent. Like,
you're not allowed to talk today. I'm like, well, good luck with that, honey.
Mikey would have to cut a little hole in the tape if you were to wear it.
like your mask. Like your mask with like little...
I'm surprised they made the gay people wear it though, Mikey. Because it should be the day for everybody else to be silent, but for gay people to shout it out, right? I mean, that's
I wasn't gay yet. That's what I was going to say with the trans kids. It's like, I had a pretty good idea at the time.
No,
but I was like, I want to be sure.
No, your audio's messed up again. This is the day of Mikey's messed up audio.
This is the silence day. This is the Mikey silence day. Yeah.
This is okay. Try to say something. While you do, I'm going to bring this up. Now, this is something that I found.
How about now?
Oh, good. You're back. You're better.
Yeah. Okay. I used a different deck.
So, speaking of all the stuff that kids are getting into and learning about, there's a whole community of kids online in the Tumblr world, and
Tumblr still exists. What's narc gender?
I thought it was Reddit, but
this is the thing where we celebrate our neurodiversity instead of just being like, I have a mental illness. I should probably get that checked out.
Yeah. So
this is every single person in the queer movement is narcissistic.
One flag to rule them all.
That's funny. I was thinking that narc gender would be like you tell on everybody, right? Like you narc everybody.
Oh yeah, narcs.
That's your gender.
This is the day we celebrate our narcissism as opposed to every other day.
Mikey, your audio's messed up again. Sorry. Okay. let me run
but you're
through
right.
this.
This might make sense too, because I mean, I have a little thing that says "Don't be a effing narc" on in my studio, and yeah, it works both ways. Don't be a narc in terms of telling on people, but don't be a narc in terms of being narcissistic.
A narcissist. Yeah. So this is for anyone who can't see it. If you're just listening to the audio version of the show later, this is a flag of several ugly colors, and it says narc gender. And then underneath, there's a definition. Narc gender is a neurogender for individuals with narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, whose gender is influenced by their NPD and or can only be understood in the context of having NPD. This label is exclusive in bold to those with NPD. Self-diagnosed individuals. NPD is narcissistic personality disorder.
It's not a personality
Can you hear me now?
It's just being an asshole. That's all it is.
So it can only be understood by people with NPD.
Yes, we can hear you.
Think about that. How narcissistic is that statement?
I found this in my drawer.
It's also, here we go. 1 second. It's also it says, this is the last part. The self-diagnosed individuals are allowed to use this term as long as they've done proper research on the disorder.
Who decides what proper research is?
You decide. It's narcissism.
It's self-ID. And honestly,
Self-ID.
if they want to ID as narcissistic, I don't know what to tell them. They probably are narcissistic.
I don't think so, actually. I'll disagree with you on this, because I think a narcissist would never admit to being a narcissist. I think I think they probably have a high degree of narcissism, but I wouldn't go so far as to say they have NPD. I do think they might have something like borderline or some other kind of cluster B, where makes them feel strong to say they're a narcissist, that they're that type of cluster B. But I don't know any narcissists who would be like, yep, that's me. I really just don't, except for maybe Kanye West. He sort of claims it, but otherwise, Trump doesn't really claim it.
Does anyone else feel bad for Kanye and Kim? I kind of wish
I
they didn't get split up.
Kind of on his side.
Yeah,
Mike,
too, kind of.
Mikey's still bad.
Mikey, your audio is so garbled. Yeah. That's okay.
Do you think it stems from insecurity, though? Because what we are seeing is people are getting validity from having mental disorders. I mean, TikTok is full of DID trenders and all these other stuff. So even something that is not a good or something to be proud of being narcissistic is actually a character flaw, a very big character flaw. But they're even using that as a way to get, woke points.
It's interesting because there's so much of this is about needing to have an identity and not having an identity other than one you sort of create or establish based on the given boxes that exist out there. To a large degree, I think as a culture, we have completely destroyed the concept of a rite of passage, right? We've taken away God, we've taken away our religious traditions, we've taken away those religious ceremonies, right, that go along with it. I mean, if you think about it, like I'm Catholic. I was an atheist for a long time before I came back to being Catholic, but we have a lot of traditions in the church, a lot of sacraments, and these sacraments are ways that they're like milestones, right? You can sort of chart your life by these milestones. You get baptized at the beginning, at the end, you get last rites. In the middle, you can, you have your first communion, you have reconciliation, you have confirmation, marriage, holy orders, whatever it is, you have all of these things. And we took away marriage as a rite of passage because you can just live together. It's not a big deal. No one needs to get married anymore. We took away, the religious traditions, baptism, confirmation, all of those. Confirmation is a rite of passage, right? It says, now you're an adult. Bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah, that's a rite of passage. Now you're an adult. If you look at indigenous communities all over the world, so many of them, including, I believe, the Maori and I can't remember the one. There's this one in Africa. It's like I believe it starts with an M.
The Maasai.
the Maasai, yeah, they have rites of passage into adulthood at about 13. The same was true for Native American communities in the Americas. It was around the age of 13. So now around the age of 13, instead you come out. And if you don't have anything to come out, you don't have a rite of passage. If you're, you know, straight and like just the gender you are, right, then that's an issue, because you have no way to move forward. You have no way to mark your entry into adulthood. So I think we have replaced these religious rites of passage with all of this, with so much nonsense, you know, just trying to find a place in the world, just trying to find a way to say, I am an adult and I am going to make my own decisions. We need to have these rites of passage. This is like how so many kids ended up with tattoos. There was nothing else to mark their entry into adulthood, you know, than like masses of tattoos. The kids younger than you know, my generation, like, are fully tatted up. There's like, it's like solid.
This
you know?
this is such a good
Actually,
point.
this is interesting. Oh, I got a tattoo at 15. So, and I've actually am in the process of getting it removed because I didn't think that I would be transitioning later in life, and it's on my calf, and it's not a spot where I really want a tattoo anymore. So I kind of went the opposite way. I wanted to be hyper masculine and do like the tattoo, and I think that this is absolutely spot on, and this is actually something that I haven't heard anybody really discuss, is the rite of passages that we used to have. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, I find it fascinating. I was teaching catechism at my church for a while until it turned Zoom, and it just made me die inside, and I couldn't do it, sadly. But because of my own, I don't know, narcissistic personality disorder. I don't know. Anyway, but we talked a lot about a rite of passage, and I really tried to, because in the Hispanic community too, you have a quinceanera, and a lot of the kids are Hispanic, but like a lot of the kids weren't too. So there wasn't this. Some kids were having these big birthday parties and it was like a whole thing. And some kids were just like, meh. So I tried to hype it up and be like, this is how you say that you're an adult in the church. You say that you're, you know, you go through your confirmation process, you consider all these things, and now you are an adult in the church and you can decide for yourself, you know, about your life of faith and community and all that. I really tried to make that a thing.
I had when I got tattoos, it was very much that conscious decision of, I thought about it and I said, this is a rite of passage. This is sort of replaced a rite of passage. So I got one for my 18th birthday, or I got two for my 18th birthday.
I did too.
And then that was, and I think it did function as that in a way. It's like you're picking out an identity, something that means something to you off the wall, which now I look back and it's just so cheap. It's just a cheap form of identity. So I ended up with things that I liked at the time. It's like a frog and a butterfly. That's who I am. You know, it's so stupid, but you know, just it's permanent, but at least they were small. And then when I turned 28, I was thinking, okay, I need to get more tattoos now, 10 years later, to mark who I am. And I'm so glad I didn't do that, because the things I was thinking of getting, my friends, my ex-husband, it talked me out of. I was such a hardcore social justice warrior then. That was my identity. And it was a very bad identity. And it was on such shaky ground. And I didn't know that. You know, it was all this constructed stuff because I didn't really know who I was. I just had this ideology standing in for identity. And so I was going to get the female fist of righteousness, you know, with the communist fist.
Powerful.
Yeah, with the women's symbol around it on my shoulder. Can you imagine if I had that?
That would be painful to remove, because that would be very dark. It would be painful to remove. I had, you know, when I was 18, when I was 12, I realized that I wanted to do drugs. Like, I was like, oh wow, I really want to do drugs. And so I said to myself, just wait till you're 18. So on my 18th birthday, I was in college and I was like, all right, yo, let's go. And then I did a bunch of drugs for a while. But I think we have this weird idea that we are who we are, and that's a fixed point. You know, I mean, like, I don't think any of us know who we are, because we are not. We are in process the whole time. Like, what you can do is you can establish a set of values, you know, priorities, and you can stick with those, and you can use those to make your decisions throughout your life. you know, and you can, like, every time you have to make a big decision, bounce it off your set of values, bounce it off your morals and see if it matches. And if it doesn't match, reevaluate, figure out what it is that's the right thing to do based on your set of values. I think that's more important than knowing who you are, because who you are, like Sara was just saying, you know, she went for a masculine thing at first, unaware that she was going to transition later. Then she transitions later, and now, you know, she's still the same person, right? Like, you're still the same person.
Yeah, you're always learning about yourself, right? That's what
Yeah.
it is. I learned about myself as I grew up.
Right.
I feel like that's the best. Wait,
yeah.
sorry. Can you hear
Go.
me?
No, go, Mikey. Go, Mikey.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Yay. Good. Okay, let me like hurry while this lasts. That is like, I think, the best argument against trans kids having any sort of medical thing. I got the ugliest, most hideous tattoos when I was 16 that I desperately tried to cover up as often as I can. So, like, if that shows how minors are capable of making lifelong decisions for their bodies.
Yeah. And
Just
even
don't.
adults, but if you're an adult, at least we sort of have this age limit, which we've said, okay, it's 18 to make these decisions. And you know, for if you're gonna smoke or get a tattoo, but not for major surgery that could remove a body part or end up sterilizing you or have some other type of side effect that you might regret. That doesn't compute for me. So
Yeah. I mean, I'm a libertarian purist when it comes to anything over the age of 18 or whatever. And I think we get this wrong too much of the time as well. A lot of people point to, I mean, who is it? Kira Bell is the person who transitioned in the UK and was fighting against the UK. Now, her story, I've actually talked a little bit how I don't, they propped her up. But the problem is she transitioned at 20 years old. She had her double mastectomy at 20 years old. At some point, we have to start looking at personal responsibility for people like that. We can't.
She started it earlier, though.
She got like puberty blockers at 16, which was really interesting to me. Why wouldn't you just move to cross-sex hormones at 16 in the first place? But puberty blocker at 16 doesn't seem to make any sense. Honestly, you've already gone through most of your puberty, if not all of it.
I think also she was talking about how she had, when she was 16 and she went to gender clinic, she had no, there was no mental health counseling.
Yeah.
It was like one
she
session.
She was like, their informed consent was not informed consent, and there was no pushback. And that's when I talked about a little bit earlier about activist therapists. And the UK has a lot more issues than we have, at least here in the US, in terms of divide. But we're moving right behind them. And activist therapists who start with gender affirming care only and don't go with the watchful waiting model to see if this person really is trans. Like, they start at the end point and then they try to work to get to that end point. Like, how can we get you to this point? What do you need to say the right things to get you here? But they're affirming it immediately. Like, it's almost like put the puberty blockers in your arm after the first session.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's an issue too, is we are so enamored with this idea that we're going to affirm that we don't realize that this can put a lot of people in danger.
Yeah. Affirming too early.
And also there's a huge difference between like if your kid comes home and says that they're gay, you could be like, okay, you don't have to do anything. There's no,
you don't have to get a cake
treatment. No, I mean, you could, like, I'm always up for a cake. You could, but like, there's nothing that goes along with that other than, like, you know, if you start dating, let me know, because I'm going to vet the person you're dating no matter what sex they are, you know.
But it's like you said earlier too, Libby, that social transition before medical transition should be on the table before anything. Like you were talking about, if it was your child. Social transition is one thing. Accepting your child and letting them explore their gender is one thing, but not medicalization. I think you nailed it when you talked about it earlier.
Yeah.
But I think that's why. I think that's why. Can you hear? I'm having such a horrible tech day. I'm sorry. That's why I think they're focusing on gender and not sexuality, because in terms of sexuality, it's something that's so personal to somebody and so hardwired that they could try to screw with that, but they wouldn't get very far. Whereas if you get kids early enough and give them these ridiculous ideas that gender is totally just based on what you wear and just based on these very rigid stereotypes, you can get them into this and you can confuse the hell out of them. And it also allows them to cast a wider net because it's only a very small percentage of the population that's gay, unfortunately for my love life, but everybody has a gender.
So they're trying to, like, it goes back to talking about postmodernism earlier. They're trying to erase sexuality, period, because there's no absolute. So nobody's gay, nobody's straight, nobody's anything. They're trying to erase completely. And that's what queer theory does, is erase sexuality completely.
Yeah. Somebody in chat, BS, hi, she says, again, not enough mental health professionals. It's actually, it's that I think a lot of the mental health professionals are on board with this ideology and they've sort of adopted it.
Problem, yeah.
That's the problem. And so you see a lot of therapists and psychiatrists now who are pushing kids who don't conform to gender stereotypes, pushing them into transition immediately. That was the case with Helena, who I interviewed, who's someone who detransitioned later in young adulthood. The therapist, everyone was on board with pushing her into transitioning immediately. But then when she started to question it and started to think about detransitioning, even the therapist was against it. That's how the sunken cost thing we're talking about. If you get everyone around you is invested in you making this one decision, and then if you're like, hey, I'm not sure if I made the right decision, that whole support system falls apart. So I would say those therapists are doing their job.
That's the trend of detransitioners. All have very similar stories to that, where they felt like they were pushed into it, and then it's like they try to stay in that because now it's, who am I letting down because of my choice that I made, or embarrassment.
Yeah. I wanted to get back just quickly before we have to go. I don't know how much longer I have you guys, but your point, Libby, about the ritual and coming of age and identity, that's so spot on. It's something I've been thinking about a lot. And a lot of the kids, like that narc gender thing I put up, we're all laughing at it and everything. And I know that's not a big part of the social justice left yet, but there is this corner. Right. Yeah, there's this corner of the online world on Tumblr, on YouTube, on TikTok, where all of these young preteens and teenagers are talking about this stuff and pushing it. And there's a whole, on YouTube, if you look up, there's an entire community of these YouTubers who are all young. They claim to have dissociative identity disorder, which is called multiple personality disorder. So they claim to be a system, and there's multiple personalities who live in their system.
I saw some of that on Libs of TikTok, and it was like a person saying that their name was this, and then their name was Alex, and then their name was Sasha, and then their name was Lexi. And it was almost like they're just picking the coolest names and doing.
Yeah, none of them are named Herman.
When I talked about,
was deaf and started doing sign language.
I'm Scott. You know.
Yeah.
When I talked about DID. When I talked about the DID trend earlier, that's what that is. Like, TikTok and the DID trend. And Ariel did a great video about this that I was in a couple like a month ago, and she broke it down and had a few of those videos in there. Like, there was one person that had South Park. Every character in it was South Park characters.
Oh, so that's when they say that one of their personalities, they have a whole lingo, just like the rest of social justice. So in that DID world, they will say, well, this personality is fictive. A fictive is a personality who is a fictional character. So they'll say, one of my personalities is Sherlock Holmes, or one of my personalities is Scooby-Doo. And it's gotten...
Or an animal.
Or an animal. There are some that claim to have personalities who are ghosts, non-human personalities. And the kids, I know it sounds funny to us, and I laugh about it, but it's like the kids are getting pulled into this stuff the same way the the kids that we call transgenders, who are doing it because it's hip and cool. So that narc gender thing came from a 15-year-old's Tumblr, a 15-year-old who spends a lot of time on Twitter talking with other kids in this community. And they're starting to claim, I almost think it's because, like you said, Libby, it's this thing about marking their identity and figuring out who they are. But because within social justice, you get more social credit, the more marginalized you are, the more oppressed you are. being gay or being trans isn't enough. Everybody's gay and trans now in their cult. Yeah. So now there's kids in there saying, well, I'm also a narcissist. And then this kid was saying, I'm into necrophilia and I'm into, and I'm into zoo sadism, which is the abuse of animals. And
good God, what? That's a crime.
Yeah, putting that on their profile as part of their identity, their marginalized identity, necrophilia, zoo sadism. And
these are the people we're supposed to look out for because they're going to go shoot up their school.
Yeah. And I think that there's not enough. I feel almost out of place saying this because I'm not a parent, but being in a lot of the Facebook groups for the parents who are talking about their kids who are transitioning, there's parents in there who are like, okay, now my kid says they're a furry, and they're not monitoring anything the kids are doing online. Nothing. One of the moms,
I gotta say, like, it's hard. It's hard to monitor what your kid is doing online. Like, it's really hard. My son has a phone. He has a laptop as well. And I get like reports from Microsoft once a week that say what sites he's been visiting. I have like protections on everything. There's a ton of stuff that he can't access. But then, kids bring porn to school and show it to each other. And this stuff gets around.
But you're active about it. A lot of parents in today's society are just putting their hands into the state, just letting their kids be grown by the state. Don't care what they're taught in school. It's like parents have just given up. Like this current generation, and it's my generation. It's like we raised them that it's like we were treated differently. So now we just want to just hands off. Everybody, we all got trophies, so we just don't need. Our kids are gonna be fine no matter what. And
you were part of the everybody gets a trophy generation.
I was just ahead of the everybody gets a trophy generation, but it was coming, and we saw it come up, and it's like now this current generation, every person got a trophy generation is like their kids are taking it one step further, but they don't care. They want the state to raise their kids for them, and that's what's scary.
Yeah, that is scary.
One of the most.
I feel like it's sort of about the making your kids aware of this and sort of the culture you create for your kids. Like you may not be able to know everything your son looks at, but I feel like you've had these discussions with him. You've sort of warned him about these things. Like when I have kids someday, they are not getting 1,000 feet near this alphabet rainbow bullshit. So I feel
like run to it too. Like you gotta, it's a balance. You gotta balance it.
That's why I feel like parents just need to know, keep your kids as far away from this shit as is humanly possible.
Just keep them off TikTok. I am firmly
I was just going to say,
that is a psyop from China. It is completely a psyop to change American culture because look what they allow in China. Look what they allow in other parts of the world. It's here to change American culture for the worse. They don't allow.
Yeah, they want to destroy us from the inside. And I think that we are destroying ourselves from the inside. I think it's really a shame.
Yeah.
We don't value being American. We don't value our American culture. We divide up our culture into these little boxes and say this piece belongs to this group and this piece of culture belongs to that group, instead of realizing that all of American culture belongs to all of Americans, like all of it. All of European culture belongs to all of Americans. Like that's the deal. I hate this whole concept of Black History Month because Black history is American history. Like just put it in there, just cover everything with everything else. Like it's all part of it. Go by time period, whatever it is that you're doing, and cover it where it lands in the timeline of the curriculum. Don't separate it out. It's not like, you only look at Black history at one part of the year and then you never have to look at it again, because Black history is just part of the rest of it's just part of the rest of American history. Like there's no reason to separate it out. And the same thing is true with Black culture. I mean, what force of culture has been a greater influence globally than Black American culture? It's it's amazing,
and think of
let's own all of it. Let's all have all of it. We don't have to separate it out.
But what you're saying, Libby, that's a very liberal attitude. And we've gone way beyond liberalism into this. Yeah, we're way past that. Yeah. We're in this place where, social justice it's not, they even say the liberals looked at America as a melting pot. And I know there were some conservatives who had issues with that. But what's funny is that they've gone so far now. Social justice people will say America's not a melting pot, it's a salad. And you have to keep every group distinct and separate. And they're all about separating us. And you've got your Black History Month and your Women's History Month and your Gay History Month. And let's keep it all distinct and separate.
So you can't call them liberals anymore. You have to call them progressives because that's what they are. They are progressing us into failure.
I'm at the point where I don't even care as much about the months, the Black History, the Pride of whatever, if they would just be normal every other month. I'm like, okay, have your month, but can we stop? Can we let up a little bit with this shit during every other month? But no, you can't even have that.
They're turning people off. What you're saying, Livy, is so true about how many great, wonderful things have come from Black culture, but they're turning people off to the point where when I log into any kind of, my housemate has a Netflix account, and whether it's Netflix or Amazon or any of these streaming services, you log in and they're like, would you like to watch all of this Black sim? And I'm like, stop, like just put it in with everything else. I don't like
You know what I don't
Uber
understand
Eats.
about Netflix? I can't, there's no genre for mysteries. There's like psychological thrillers and there's dramas, but like, I want a mystery. I just want a mystery. And there's no category for that. Yeah. Where are you putting Agatha Christie? For God's sakes, just tell me and I will go to that channel.
But you can find the Black queer section right up top. Black queer section.
I would take a Black
Fletcher
queer
should be in
mystery.
jail.
Like I just want mysteries. That's all I want. Jessica Fletcher should not be in jail. What do you mean?
Oh, come on. Did nobody realize that wherever this bitch went, death followed? She was a freaking serial killer.
It was not her fault. No.
It was all she did. She killed them
not
all.
Jessica. Not Jessica.
She killed every single one of them. This bitch was the most prolific serial killer on the friggin' Eastern Seaboard.
Wow. So you can teach a college course on that.
Like, oh my God, I've seen every episode and I love her and I'm glad she got away with it all. But
I've seen
in
every
my
episode
murder,
as well.
she wrote cinematic
Also, Magnum
universe.
PI. You remember? Like, I loved Magnum PI.
Yes.
I think I loved Magnum PI just because of Tom Selleck's shorts. I'm pretty sure that that's why I like the show. But
So then
I
you
still
like the
watched
current
every
fashion
episode.
trend then, right?
No, I really just
Men
like
wearing
it on
short
Tom
shorts?
Selleck in the 80s. That's all I like. The current men, no. Just really Tom Selleck
Current
in the
men
80s.
wearing the chubbies, you don't, that's...
What's with the crop
rock
tops? Like, do
those.
we have to all be a crop top? We're all fat after 2 years, and now we
Oh,
gotta
no.
show it off? What the hell is with
No.
this trend?
No, the
No.
trend I hate is I've been
Funny, like
watching.
crop tops.
No, the men are now wearing these like skinny lady pants like the
Lady
form
pants, like
fitting.
silk? Ugh.
No, like
Oh,
the
like
form fitting leggings. Yes, and I'm
Good
like,
God.
You wear leggings?
yes, and I find it so it's not masculine. It's very, but they're trying to wear it in this masculine way, like a jock on top, and then these form fitting pants at the bottom with no socks and these keds, and it's a woman from the
No,
waist down.
I was
The
gonna
only
say
way
if
you
you
can
work
do-
if you work out and you do squats, then okay. But if you don't,
I need to do squats.
Mikey, you know what we're talking about. If a man does squats and he's dressed in like tight pants, come on now.
I need to do more. I'm gonna file like a missing persons report for my ass. I don't have one.
This week was my first week back in the gym, so I know exactly what you're talking about, Carrie.
Oh gosh,
I've been segregated from going to a gym for like 6 months.
No,
And I got-
it's over. It's over, Mikey. It's over.
Okay, wait, you're the perfect person. Are you I don't trust that.
They lifted it. Starting Monday, we can go to things again. We can go to
I feel
things.
like there's
Yeah.
gonna be a loophole. I'm not happy.
Yeah,
yet.
the loophole is for children under 5. They have to remain masked at all times.
wow.
That's the loophole. So yes, that is a bad loophole. We have a story coming on that soon, actually. That's a bad loophole, but that's the loophole. The rest of us can go live our lives.
I think what's going to happen is they're going to say, "Oh, businesses can choose," and all the businesses will say,
Yeah,
"You still
they
have to do
did.
it."
And
Well-
those businesses will then be on my very permanent shit list.
Yeah, there's
Because
Because
actually
I haven't been able to take my kid anywhere. Like, I got vaccinated because my mom basically demanded that I get vaccinated, and I was like, okay, I've never once listened to you. I may as well start now. But I didn't get my son vaccinated because it's stupid.
Good.
I did see Clifton Duncan on Twitter. He was talking about some of the theaters in New York, which they all came together and they put out a joint statement saying that despite them lifting the mandates, they're going to continue to require a vaccine and mask at their performances. And it's like, how long do you think you're going to?
That's because theater is dead. That's because they have killed it. I just
want to go see Beetlejuice the musical.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to go see anything ever again.
I mean, I'm not going.
And I have a degree in theater. Like I have a master's degree in theater. I never want to go to a theater ever again if they're going to make me jump through hoops and be compliant. Like theater is meant to be profane. It's not sacred. It's not sanitized. It's a profane and filthy art form, and it ought to remain that way.
I love that
they have the Harry Potter play, and all the productions across the world came together to make videos denouncing J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, I will never go see that either because I love Rowling. She invented a whole fucking Oh, can I say that? She invented a whole fucking universe. She invented a universe that made all of us feel like we could imagine ourselves in it. You know, what's better than walking around imagining yourself in some universe?
So here's the question I do have, though, because I had the same question when they came out with the HBO special. J.K. Rowling still owns the rights. So is she getting paid for all that? If she's getting paid, maybe think about...
Yeah, she does.
Maybe think about going. If she's getting paid for it, then maybe think about going because it still puts money in her pocket.
Yeah.
She has enough money. I could buy her other stuff. Plus, I already bought all her books. I bought all her movies.
Yeah, don't support the theaters.
I've actually been wanting to
support the theaters anyways.
The Harry Potters. I've been thinking of doing a marathon.
Oh, really? It's well worth it.
I've seen like the first one or two when I was a kid, but that's it.
I found all the books one day at a used book sale, library sale near where my grandmother used to live before she passed. And my son was little, and he's like, "Mom, we need to get all these Harry Potters." So I was like, "Okay, $7, 7 books. Couldn't beat it. It was great."
Nice.
And
my roommate's rewatching them all right now. I'm rewatching Star Wars. I'm rewatching Star Wars. She's rewatching Harry Potter.
Everybody's watching the old
Next
stuff,
Generation.
Everybody's going back because
I never left.
Sorry, I was saying everybody's going back to old things because it doesn't have the wokeness. I'm trying to do on this channel. I have a show with my friend Mystery Chris. We're doing a pop culture show, and he was saying we really want to do something about pop culture where we don't just complain about all the woke stuff, but really highlight things that are different. And so far, we've been talking about the 90s because
one show
it's
for
hard. Yes.
I have one show. It is amazing. It's so good. It's a freaking work of art, and there has not been one. They're on season 3. There's not been one word of any politics, any wokeness. Nobody will listen to me about this. You guys are sleeping on this show. You have to watch Servant.
Servant.
I haven't even heard.
Sci-fi? Is it
no,
sci-fi?
it's
What is it?
You would love it. It's like a drama, thriller, kind of mystery, kind of culty.
Okay.
It's so good. It's so good.
I can take a break from watching Star Trek and watch that.
Oh, it's so good.
But you're absolutely right though, Carrie, because even right now, and everybody, like I have never seen the original Sex and the City, and my roommate got me hooked on it because she was watching the original Sex and the City. So now I'm addicted, and I'm watching it all the way through and binging it. But then I watched the first episode of the new one with her, and I'm like, oh, that's cringy.
Yeah, Mikey's doing the whole
cringy,
thing on it. Yeah.
I have a video coming out on Sunday. I am doing the And Just Like That saga.
Oh.
Yeah, it got very woke.
It got very woke. The L Word did the same thing.
The least of it.
And the L Word did the same thing.
Really? I was talking to Batya Ungar-Sargon about this. She's a really interesting thinker. She was saying that she thinks that And Just Like That did all the woke stuff as a send-up of it, like almost as a roast.
It seems like it.
It could be, but is it self-aware enough to actually be doing that? I don't know.
I've literally listened
that first
to the
episode
Writers' Room podcast that they have, and it's like a parody. You have to hear this Writers' Room podcast. It's like these white chicks who are like, oh, well, we're very comfortable talking about race in the Writers' Room. Right, Leslie? Tell them, Leslie. We're very
Everyone hates
comfortable
white
with
women. White women are the segment of the population that it's okay to just outright despise.
And despise yourself. You're supposed
Only
to despise
liberal
yourself.
white chicks.
Right, you're
Yeah.
supposed to hate yourself too. But I wrote an article, I think it was 2019, about how white women suck, and I got banned for I got flagged. I didn't get banned. I got flagged for hate speech on Facebook for saying that
Is
white
that why you
women
got
suck.
banned
I
from
was like, this
Instagram?
is a satire. What's that?
Is that why you got banned from Instagram?
I didn't get banned from any. I haven't been banned from anything. Don't
I thought
tell.
you were banned from Instagram.
No, I just I
Knock on
I
wood.
started a public Instagram because the one I have is like mostly just me and my kid,
Oh,
my
cool.
family. So then people were like, "Oh, I want to follow you on Instagram." I'm like, you can't do that.
Yeah, because you got your private.
Child. Yeah.
Well,
So then I started a public
yeah.
one, but I keep the only things I really have to post on it are me having drinks, and it's like I don't know if that's really what I'm going for. Me 3 in Nashville. Like, no.
Well, soon you'll be in Texas. So before we go,
Yeah.
I just want to tell people a little bit about what's coming up for each of you and where to find you. Mikey and Libby are going to be in Texas for the Better Discourse Conference in April. Myth Informs Better Discourse Conference. I'll be moderating 2 of the panels, I think. And Sarah, I know you've got Freedom Fest coming up, but why don't you just go around and tell people where to find you?
Yeah, so I got Freedom Fest coming up. If you guys are looking at going, it's in Vegas. It's at the Mirage in Vegas from July 12th through the 14th.
What is it?
What's that?
It's
like all the top liberty-minded people have spoke there. Like Glenn Beck's been there before. This year it's Justin Amash, Spike Cohen, Rand Paul speaking. Zuby's going to be there. Dave Smith. Hannah Cox,
you have to send me about this.
Eliza Blue.
I want to cover it. You have to send me.
Yeah. And so
I
they
love
do it
Eliza.
every year. Yeah, they do it every year.
Plus, I want to go to Vegas.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm super excited because and I'm speaking. I don't know if I'm gonna have a solo speech yet or not. We're still working on some of those details. But yeah, so early bird special ends March 31st. So
Okay.
And right now they're also running a few different specials on top of that. Like if you're a Joe Rogan fan podcast, I think he put JRE in the thing, and it's like $50 off. So that, and then you can find me sarahhigdon.com, youtube.com/Sara Higdon, and on Twitter and IG at Sara Higdon with an _ after it.
Thank you, Sarah. Little Ragamuffin is in Vegas. I think she'll come see you.
Oh yeah.
I'm jealous.
Mikey, where can we find you?
Libby, you want to hear something insane?
I do.
Guess who is going to be hosting Myth Informed?
Oh my goodness, is it you? That's amazing.
How insane is that?
That's actually kind of insane.
I'm hosting the entire Myth Informed conference. I've never hosted anything before, but I'm going to make it epic. I'm so excited.
Just wear a nice jacket and you'll nail it. That's all you need.
I'm just thinking of how many costume changes I'm going to do. I'm so excited.
Like an award show.
I've literally been watching clips of like Billy Crystal hosting the Oscars in the 90s.
Uh-huh.
I'm
Nice.
taking this shit seriously.
Nice.
Anyway, no, you guys, I'm gonna have my YouTube channel's been a bit barren, but I'm getting on it. So I'm gonna have this new video on Sunday. I have Facebook.
What's your channel?
Just my name, Mike Harlow.
You should say it.
Oh, my name. It's my name. I have Twitter,
helpful.
Instagram. Locals. Add me on Locals.
His name is Mike Harlow.
Yes.
Mike Harlow, everyone.
Mike like Tyson, Harlow like Gene.
I'm Libby Emmons. I'm at Libby Emmons on Twitter. I'm Libby.Emmons on Instagram. My new one. You can see pictures of me having drinks. Primarily, that's all I do. Where else am I? I just joined Truth Social, so I'm at Libby Emmons on Truth Social and Getter, and I'm up at thepostmillennial.com every day. you guys want to help us out, you can throw us some cash at thepostmillennial.com/contribute. We've been targeted by Antifa. It's all very exciting. People going after our advertisers. Everyone hates us. It's very exciting. Woo. Yeah. It's great. Great fun. It's great fun being hated by everyone. Even though you're liberal, you're like, okay, thanks. Anyway.
I would say thank you guys for hanging out in the chat. I'm sorry I was a bit distracted today. I was doing the tech, and we don't have super chats yet. Oh, you can find me. This is a new channel. So if you stumbled on it and don't realize it's a new channel, hit subscribe, and you can find me on Twitter. I finally got a handle people can remember. It's Real Carrie Smith.
Finally.
Yeah. Nike was telling me to do that for a long time. So anyway, thank you guys for giving us your time and your insight today. Libby, I'm so happy you could join us. And I look forward to seeing you guys in person. Cool.
Thanks.
End broadcast.